July 29th, 1014.
A mountain pass in the Balkan.
The Byzantine army has just won a decisive victory. 15,000 Bulgarian soldiers sit as prisoners, surrounded by their captors. Then the order comes down from Emperor Basil II. Divide them into groups of 100. Blind 99 men in each group. Leave one man with a single eye to guide the others home.
The soldier carry out the order.
What happens next will earn Basil a nickname that echoes through history, the Bulgar Slayer. And when the blinded army stumbles back to their capital, their leader will die from the shock of seeing them. This is the story of the Battle of Kleidion, the most brutal punishment in medieval warfare. To understand why Basil did this, we need to go back almost 50 years. The conflict between Byzantium and Bulgaria wasn't new. It had been brewing since the 7th century when Bulgarian tribes first settled south of the Danube River in what was supposed to be Byzantine territory. For centuries, the two powers fought for control of the Balkans.
Sometimes Byzantium won.
Sometimes Bulgaria won. But by the late 900s, Bulgaria had grown into a genuine threat to the Byzantine Empire. In 976, a man named Samuel rose to power in Bulgaria. He wasn't supposed to be Tsar. He was one of 4 brothers who ruled together after the previous Bulgarian dynasty collapsed. But one by one, his brothers died under suspicious circumstances. By 997, Samuel was the sole ruler of Bulgaria, and he had ambitions. He expanded Bulgarian territory aggressively, pushing into Byzantine lands in Greece and Macedonia. He captured the city of Larissa. He raided Thessalonica. He even threatened Constantinople itself. The Byzantine Empire was in chaos, and Samuel took full advantage. That same year, 976, Basil II became Byzantine emperor at age 18. But he wasn't really in charge. For years, powerful generals ran the empire while Basil was sidelined. He watched as these men enriched themselves and ignored the Bulgarian threat. It took Basil almost a decade to consolidate power and remove these rivals. By 986, he was finally ready to deal with Samuel personally. His first campaign was a disaster. Basil led a large army into Bulgaria and besieged the city of Serdica, modern-day Sofia. He failed to take it. As his army retreated through a mountain pass called the Gates of Trajan, Samuel ambushed them. The Bulgarian forces slaughtered the Byzantine troops in the narrow defile. Basil barely escaped with his life. The young emperor was humiliated. Samuel had proven he was a formidable opponent. But Basil learned from his mistakes. He would never underestimate the Bulgarians again. For the next 15 years, Basil waged a war of attrition against Bulgaria. He didn't try to win in one decisive battle. Instead, he launched campaign after campaign, year after year, slowly grinding down Bulgarian defenses. He captured fortresses. He burned crops. He destroyed supply lines. It was brutal, methodical warfare designed to exhaust the enemy. Samuel couldn't stop him. Every year, the Byzantines pushed deeper into Bulgarian territory. Every year, Bulgaria grew weaker. By 1014, Samuel was desperate. His nobles were losing faith in him. His people were exhausted from decades of war. He needed a victory, something to prove he could still defend the realm. So he decided to make a stand. He chose the pass at Kleidion, a narrow valley along the Struma River that the Byzantine army would have to cross to reach the heart of Bulgaria. It was perfect terrain for defense. Samuel gathered 45,000 men, though historians think the real number was closer to half that. He built fortifications across the pass. Wooden walls, ditches, earthworks, towers. The Bulgarians dug in and waited. Basil arrived with his army in July 1014. He knew this was his chance to finish the war once and for all. He launched an immediate assault on the Bulgarian defenses. It failed. The Bulgarians repelled the attack with heavy losses. Samuel, confident his fortifications would hold, left the battlefield and returned to his capital at Sofia to wait for news of victory. But Basil wasn't done. He had a plan. He sent one of his best generals, Nikephoros Xiphias, on a secret mission. Xiphias took a large force of troops and began climbing the steep slopes of Mount Belisitsa, the mountain overlooking the Bulgarian position. Local Greek shepherds showed them a hidden path through the rugged terrain. It was a grueling climb, almost impossible for an army to attempt. But Xiphias pulled it off. His troops reached the top and positioned themselves behind the Bulgarian fortifications without being detected. On July 29, Xiphias launched his attack from the heights. The Bulgarians, facing forward to defend against Basil's frontal assault, were caught completely off guard. They turned to face this new threat from behind, and that's when Basil struck. His forces stormed the wooden palisades.
From the front.
With the Bulgarians now fighting on two fronts, their defenses collapsed. The Byzantine heavy cavalry poured through the breach. The Bulgarian army broke and ran. It was a total rout. Trapped between the hammer and the anvil, thousands of Bulgarian soldiers surrendered. Some sources say 15,000 men were captured. Others say 8,000. The exact number doesn't really matter. What matters is what happened next. Basil II had spent 30 years fighting Bulgaria. He had been humiliated at the gates of Trajan. He had watched Samuel raid Byzantine cities and massacre Byzantine citizens. He had lost friends and trusted generals in this endless war. One of them, Theophylactus Botaniates, had been killed by the Bulgarians just months earlier. Basil was done showing mercy. He wanted to send a message that would crush Bulgarian resistance forever. He gave the order: divide the prisoners into groups of 100. For every group, blind 99 men completely. Leave one man with a single eye. That one-eyed man would guide the 99 blind soldiers back to Bulgaria.
Imagine the scene.
15,000 men lined up. Byzantine soldiers moving down the line with hot irons or sharp blades, destroying the eyes of prisoner after prisoner. The screams. The blood. The smell. It must have been horrific even by medieval standards. Why did Basil do it? In the Byzantine legal system, blinding was the traditional punishment for rebels. The Bulgarians, from the Byzantine perspective, were rebels who had broken away from the empire. Basil wasn't just punishing them. He was making an example. He was also ensuring they could never fight again.
A blind man can't be a soldier.
By sending them home alive but crippled, Basil forced Bulgaria to care for thousands of disabled men who would never contribute to the war effort again. It was strategic brutality. But there was also a deeper, darker motive. 30 years earlier, in 811, the Bulgarian Khan Krum had defeated Byzantine Emperor Nicephorus I at the Battle of Kleidion. Krum killed Nicephorus in battle, then had the emperor's skull lined with silver and turned into a drinking cup. That defeat had humiliated Byzantium for generations. The Bulgarians had used the emperor's skull as a trophy. Now, Basil was repaying that humiliation 100-fold. The blinded army began its long march home. 150 men with one eye each, leading nearly 15,000 blind soldiers through the mountains back to Bulgaria. It took them days to reach Sofia. When they finally arrived, Samuel came out to see his army return. What he saw destroyed him. Thousands of men, stumbling and crying, many still bleeding from their ruined eyes, guided by the few who could still see. The sight was too much. According to the chronicles, Samuel collapsed. Some say he had a heart attack. Others say it was a stroke. Either way, he died on October 6, 1014, just 2 months after the battle. He was 60 years old.
Samuel's death marked the beginning of the end for Bulgaria.
His son Gabriel Radomir took the throne, but he was assassinated within a year. The next ruler, Ivan Vladislav, tried to continue the fight, but the Bulgarian nobility was fractured and demoralized. Basil spent the next 4 years systematically conquering Bulgarian territory. City after city fell. By 1018, the entire Bulgarian Empire had been absorbed into Byzantium. The First Bulgarian Empire, which had existed for over 3 centuries, was gone. Basil II became known as Bulgarochtonos,
The Bulgar Slayer.
It wasn't a name he used during his lifetime. It was given to him later by historians and chroniclers who wanted to commemorate his victory. In Greece, Basil is remembered as a hero. Streets in Athens still bear his name. But in Bulgaria, he's remembered as a monster. The blinding of the 15,000 is taught in Bulgarian schools as one of the darkest moments in their history. Modern historians debate whether the blinding actually happened on the scale described. The number 15,000 comes from the Byzantine chronicler John Skylitzes, who wrote 70 years after the battle. He even qualifies his account by saying "as they say," which suggests he wasn't entirely sure. Some historians think the number was exaggerated over time, growing with each retelling until it became the legendary figure we know today. The actual number might have been closer to 8,000, or even less. But even if only a few thousand men were blinded, it was still an act of extraordinary cruelty. Blinding wasn't uncommon in Byzantine politics. Emperors blinded rivals to remove them from power without killing them. A blind man couldn't rule, so blinding was seen as a merciful alternative to execution. Basil himself had used blinding as punishment before Kleidion. In earlier campaigns, he had blinded prisoners in Bulgaria and Georgia. But what made Kleidion different was the scale. Blinding one or two high-ranking prisoners was one thing. Blinding thousands of common soldiers was something else entirely. Some historians argue that Basil's brutality was necessary. The Byzantine Empire was fighting on multiple fronts. In the east, they faced the Fatimid Caliphate. In the north, there were constant threats from nomadic tribes. Basil needed to secure the Balkans quickly so he could focus resources elsewhere. By crushing Bulgaria so decisively, he eliminated a major threat and freed up troops for other campaigns. From a purely strategic perspective, it worked. Bulgaria never rose again as an independent power during Basil's lifetime. But there's no denying the human cost. 15,000 men, or 8,000, or even 5,000. It doesn't matter. These were soldiers who had surrendered. They were prisoners of war. By medieval standards, prisoners were supposed to be ransomed or enslaved, not mutilated. What Basil did was extreme even for his time. And the psychological impact was devastating. Samuel's death from shock shows just how effective Basil's terror tactics were. The blinding didn't just cripple Bulgaria militarily. It broke Bulgarian morale completely. After 1018, the Byzantine Empire reached its greatest medieval extent. Basil ruled over territories stretching from southern Italy to the eastern borders of Anatolia, from the Danube to the Mediterranean. He reformed the tax system, strengthened the military, and left the empire wealthier and more powerful than it had been in centuries. He died in 1025 at the age of 67, having ruled for 49 years.
Et never marié.
He had no children. His entire life was devoted to war and governance. And his legacy is forever tied to that moment at Kleidion, when he gave the order to blind thousands of men. Today, the village of Kleidion, the site of the Battle of Kleidion, is a small, quiet place on the border between Bulgaria and Greece. There's a monument there commemorating the battle. For Bulgarians, it's a place of mourning, a reminder of their greatest defeat. For Greeks, it's a symbol of Byzantine resilience and military genius. Two very different interpretations of the same event. The story of the Bulgar Slayer reminds us that medieval warfare was brutal in ways we can barely comprehend. There were no Geneva Conventions.
No rule of engagement.
Victory meant survival, and defeat could mean annihilation. Basil II understood this. He fought a war of attrition for 30 years, and when he finally had his enemies at his mercy, he showed none. He blinded 15,000 soldiers, sent them home as a warning, and watched as his enemy's leader died from the shock. It was calculated, cold, and devastatingly effective. And it's a story that history has never forgotten.